Hello and welcome to Bits and Atoms, the Grisham Robotics Founder Series. I'm your host, Elias Can, and today I've got Ahmed Ejaz, co-founder and CEO of Cambridge Spectacle, joining me. To get started, Ahmed, would you mind sharing a quick intro about you and Cambridge Spectacle?
Yeah, sure. So we're an eyewear brand similar to what your sort of listeners in America would think of like Warby Parker, and we're actually an eyewear brand that's focusing now on technology very much more so because this is where we see not just the eyewear industry growing, but also just the general sort of market going in terms of technology and wearables and smart devices. Hence why we've joined the Grisham Robotics Accelerator.
Absolutely. Very interesting. And I want to, before we go more into what you're doing on the product side and getting more information there and kind of how you view the market, would love to take a step back and look at you personally first and ask, what originally motivated you to become a founder? What's kind of your origin story there?
Yeah, I guess everybody has an origin story. So I was a optometrist. So I qualified as an optician in 2012, worked as an optometrist, and didn't quite have an intro into entrepreneurship. I was more of a clinician, but then I took a small break to run for Parliament, which was quite an experience, and I met some very good people there. Unfortunately I lost by well, he got 15,000, I got 14,000 votes, so just about lost, but met some really good people there, good businessmen as well, and they inspired me to think more about entrepreneurship, and I wanted to stay in what I was doing, and I felt that optometry was important to me, and it was going to be a big part of the future. And so I thought, well, I can make a pair of glasses better than Ray-Ban could, is how it started. We could make them cheaper, more affordable. And we were inspired, in all honesty, by Warby Parker and what they'd done in the United States. So we sort of got going on that journey. Did a distribution deal with a huge company in the UK called Asda. They were owned by Walmart. So similar sort of brand to Walmart over in the US. And then since then, we've really started to focus on technology, hiring a sort of product director for our smart glasses project.
Very interesting and very unique. I don't think I hear often folks going from the political background into entrepreneurship, but I'm sure there's a lot of similarities to it because it is in a similar way a bet on yourself and kind of a bet on your vision about something, being different in terms of being policy versus product. But yeah, it's a very unique backstory there.
Yeah, instead of convincing constituents, you're convincing investors, right? So it's like, and customers. So it's like it's a very similar thing. You build a team, you build a campaign. So the way we see it is very similar. Obviously, it tends to happen the other way around, where there's a businessman that might become president of the United States. But it's a little bit of a switch around that I did, and it was a great learning experience for me. And I think it was a perfect start to going into business. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm curious, because you mentioned Warby Parker in the US, and maybe, it's something that I'm less familiar with. Do they have much of a presence in the UK or less so,
No.
and the market's a bit more open?
Yeah, you'd be surprised. It's very open in terms of somebody actually taking control and doing a vertically integrated brand experience. So we saw a gap there and decided that we could create an awesome eyewear brand. And now we're seeing that same gap in the UK in terms of smart spectacles, where you've got this one company who's really dominating in terms of Meta Ray-Ban, the partnership that they have. And we have seen that Warby's announced the partnership with Google as well. So, that's happening there. But again, we're probably one of the first eyewear brands in the world to say that, hang on a second, we want to vertically integrate this ourselves. So we want to take control of the technology and we want to take control of the design as well. So hence our pivot into tech is really interesting because we're there quite early in all honesty. Yeah.
Yep. And you've been operating more in the traditional kind of eyewear space so far, and now moving, like you said, moving more into that smart glasses space where yeah, that Meta Ray-Ban partnership, I think that's typically what folks kind of have come to mind when they think of smart glasses. I guess maybe compared to their product, and if there's details you don't want to share yet because it's still under wraps, totally fine as well. But how would you kind of contrast what your plans are and what you're building versus what Meta's offering for the market today?
Yeah, I mean, we believe that privacy is going to be a huge part of this product moving forward. So we saw in the press that there were Kenyan centers where they were looking through some of your data and what you were filming, and that spurred us on even more to focus on the privacy aspect of this, because we believe that trusting an optometrist with this would give customers more confidence that they're wearing something that is in the hands of clinicians. And we're not interested in any sort of, we're not accusing them, but we're not interested in mining data. We're interested in a clinical point of view as well as a technological point of view. So we do really focus on the privacy aspect of this, making sure our partners are in the right countries as well, and the data is being handled in the right country with the right companies and partners in terms of the cloud. And we also we will be a cheaper price point, so we'll be significantly cheaper price point than you getting a Meta Ray-Ban is what we're looking at the moment. Like you say, some of the details are under wrap, but we're talking to a partner who have over 100 stores in the UK, and we know that Meta Ray-Ban aren't in those stores, and we're really excited to do a deal with them. We've signed a bit of an NDA, so we can't release too much information on what's going on there, but it's a huge distribution deal that we're looking at there.
Yep. And is the plan to start regionally in the UK first and then expand? Would it be going into EU as the next step? Would it be US? I guess I know it's still early days on this front, but curious as to how you're thinking about geographical expansion.
Yeah, we in all honesty, our product director, who's great, and is an MBA from University of Cambridge, and they taught him there, and he's very much of the mindset that the US will be next. So we think that we want to get it right in the UK. We want to make sure that we've got a really good presence here, but we're firmly looking at the US as the next as a next step. And we're at a disadvantage in the sense we're not there. But we want the product to speak for itself. And even now, actually, we don't advertise in America. We still get orders for our regular spectacles in America. So we'll find our way there. But we want to make sure that we really do end up being a dominant player in the UK market first, because it's not a small market. 70 million people here. So we want to make sure that we get that right as well, because there's huge opportunity here, and then move into the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe about the, kind of product and technology in general too, because I'm curious your thoughts on this. Just because we're seeing, I think, this age of embodied and physical AI, more wearables and folks trying different things, and obviously it's different parts of the body that folks are trying to do something with, whether it's wrist or earbuds or ring, or we've seen pendant. We saw Humane with the AI pin that didn't go as well, but at least these different kind of form factors that people are trying. I guess for smart glasses, how do you, with that form factor, what do you feel like the best use cases are for that?
Yeah, I think with smart glasses, there is like a daily use case to this, right? It's not a case of just I'm going to use it just for my health, or I'm just going to use it for the day to day. There's so much interactions now that you have with your phone. So we see it as a natural progression away from your phone, right? So it'll be the phone, and then it'll move to it was a laptop, it's a phone, it's going to move to your glasses now, and we just see that as the future of technology, and we think this is why Apple and Google and Meta are focusing on this as well overall. So I mean, we are going to integrate things like health into it, steps. These are easy things for us to integrate into the glasses, but there's going to be a really broad sort of usage of these devices do many things. I mean, the simplest one is taking pictures, right? So our prototype, you tap a button and it takes a photo, goes to your phone, and you can do what you need. You can ask it to translate something. You can do all these things. So I think with the advance of AI, it's just making this product itself like very, very special. At the moment, we're gonna use APIs to partner with some of those companies, and we can do Claude, we can do OpenAI's ChatGPT. This is not an issue, but eventually we would like to have our own LLM there as well to reduce some of those token costs, if nothing else, as well.
Yeah, and at least with partnering with some of the more established folks, it's less of like a behavior change to ask consumers to make up front. Like they don't have to completely start a new service. They can take something that's familiar and use it with a new piece of technology. And so maybe it makes the behavior change on the consumer side, a bit easier to be working with established players on that front, as opposed to going immediately with your own first party kind of like LLM product there.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and it's a great it's a great way to get started with these guys, and there'll be a massive sort of benefit to us, and that they'll have a benefit as well. The more that our users use them, the more we pay these LLMs. So there'll be a really good mutual relationship at first, and I think, yeah, like you say, the users will be so used to having used Claude, or at the moment those two are the big ones, so it'll just be an easy progression, to link into those.
Yep, for sure. And I love asking this question because classically, the saying is hardware is hard, and whenever you're building something physical, it's a different set of challenges compared to building a pure play software product. And maybe from your side so far, and what for you has been the most either challenging piece of building something in hardware so far, or unexpectedly, like it was something that you thought would be more simple up front and has become a much bigger endeavor? I guess what's kind of been maybe the more challenging or harder parts of building in hardware so far?
Well, hardware is always more difficult in that you've got to have that physical product, and there's so many challenges that come with that. So, but we've navigated those challenges. Our first order of spectacles from our distribution partner in the UK, Asda, was 10,000 pairs. That's how we got started. So we're sort of akin, and we're used to the challenges that come with a physical product and distribution and logistics and these things, but they can be huge challenges. And when you're always sort of watching what's going on in the world in terms of where you manufacture your products, doesn't matter where in the world it is, like global events will always affect you, and that's something that you don't get as much of in software, right? You want to get a build out, you just press a button and then you ship it, right? Here it's different. Like you're watching the news or you're reading the FT and thinking, okay, how's this going to affect me? How are the price changes in dollar prices going to affect me? Because we're always working in dollar prices, no matter where in the world you are, it's always US dollar. So we're always looking at the exchange rates as well. So there's these kinds of challenges that you get, but nothing too drastic that we don't think we can overcome. Like it all seems to be going okay so far.
Yeah. And I know, especially with this administration in the US, it's been with the tariff all the time, and everything's changing very quickly on that front. It can make that, like you said, that calculus a bit more difficult, and you're converting from sterling into dollars all the time to make sure it makes sense, and it's a lot.
We're already having those conversations. Like, we want to enter the US, so we're already talking about the US now. Chairman asked us just 2 days ago, like, how are the tariffs going to affect when we ship to the US, etc. So it's just a pain in terms of what's going on and the unpredictability of this administration. But you've just got to deal with it. And the other thing is that we look at the administration and we think, okay, probably won't be that. Well, certainly won't be that administration in 2 years' time, right? Because the time's up. So you've also got to keep an eye on who do you think the challenge is going to be, whether that's Republican or Democrat, or maybe someone else. And I doubt it in the US. It seems to be very much two parties, but And then in the UK as well, we've got at the moment, it looks like the leading guys are a party that's new and never been in power. So, things change here. We've had so many prime ministers in the last few years. We've had a budget that we didn't think was particularly helpful to us, and there's things like those kinds of challenges that we're navigating here as well.
Yep. And yeah, fortunately, there is always a timer on it, and fresh people coming in, and sometimes it can be a heavy swing in terms of the spectrum from the previous administration to something new, and so things can rapidly kind of change in the span of 4 years here, and yeah, it's 2 more years until we have a fresh face in office.
It looks like it, unless changes the constitution or something. I wouldn't put it past him, so
we can only hope not.
Well, I mean, some of the things, I'm a sort of a UFC fan, so I don't mind the UFC this weekend, and things like that look really good that he's doing, and but I think from a business point of view, it's been tough.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, anytime you introduce more variables or unpredictability, running a startup or early stage company is hard in general. And when you're adding more variables to it, it doesn't make anything easier at the end of the day.
Not at all, no. But nothing ever makes being a startup founder easy.
Fair. And maybe, taking a sidestep here and chatting about something else, because I'm curious to get your thoughts here in terms of, the fundraising and investor relations side. For you so far, what have kind of been your best strategies there, or tips or hacks that you've had that have worked well on the fundraising side, or conversely, if you were talking to a first-time founder today, something that you'd tell them to completely avoid because it could be a waste of time, or just not yield anything kind of meaningful. It's curious to get some of your thoughts around the fundraising piece in general.
Yeah, I think so. We did it. There's a few things we've done. So our biggest successes come from a network which we already know people in, right? And it's pretty obvious that we knew an angel investor who had seen me work in politics, liked what I'd done, and he gave £150,000 to us when we started. So that was because he'd already known us and we had that relationship. So don't be scared to ask. I'd say people you have worked with or have a relationship with, they are going to be your most likely sources of income. In terms of like some of those hacks and things we've done, we did a crowd equity raise. We raised over £200,000 from 150 people in our early days for the overall company, and that was a European crowd equity platform. So we learned some lessons there in the sense that it was a lot of work for that 200,000, which was great, but we found that the people investing the small amounts of money, who are still shareholders by all means, would ask a lot more questions than the ones that would just say put 10,000 in or 20,000, right? So if you bring £100 in, you really want to know, give me your full management accounts and all the data, and that's because it's a lot of money to those people. So I think you do need to look at the individual. That just taught us a lesson to say that if we're going to take money from someone, like, is this someone who's very capable and ultra high net worth? It would be better for us if that's the case, because they would be more they'd know more about the risks involved of investing. And in the UK, we have SEIS and EIS schemes as well, so we went down those routes as well to give tax relief to some of these investors. But yeah, I think it's always better to go for a seasoned investor. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very hands-on group of investors, and it's just not really what you tend to want to do, especially a company like us, which has decided that we want to pivot into technology as our core focus and look at that. It's you've got to be nimble as a startup. So so just choose your investors carefully.
Yeah, I think it's always a good word of advice, and it's interesting that you bring up that dynamic of sometimes smaller investors can be a little bit needier, because I've heard that I have some friends on the angel list syndicate side of things. And, you know, so they're running either one-off deals or managed funds that they're doing it. And they kind of bring up similar sentiment as well, that like, it tends to not be the bigger folks and the people that they have relationships with that ask a lot of questions. It's, you know, the smaller check or people who, you know, writing a little bit here or there, but really using a lot of time. And it's kind of like that 80-20 rule in general, where, you know, they're using 80% of the time, but they're like 20% of the money coming in. And so there's always that, I guess there's always that dynamic, whether you're in the founder seat or investor seat. And it's just how, you know, groups of people will kind of behave at some point.
Yeah, and yeah. It's not that they don't trust you, but you know, it's just that they've got a lot on the line, and yeah, but you'll feel as a founder like they don't trust you. So like I think, you know, you've got to be careful what you probably need to set a minimum, you know, a minimum like 10,000 is a ticket to get in, or 5,000, then you know that, you know, this person is probably you know, diversifying their portfolio in terms of startups as well. Yeah, so but the crowd equity platforms are supposed to ask them all these questions before they join.
Yeah. And since it is a consumer product on your side as well, like the crowdfunding side gives you nice exposure with potential customers as well. So maybe it's more of like a two birds with one stone situation to have, you know, backers and potential supporters.
That's 100% true. 100%. Yeah. And especially when you launch something that's quite, you know, unique as a product, and yeah, I think it's always going to be easier for a consumer brand to go out there, and that's why now you're seeing huge companies doing crowd equity raises, you know. So yeah, you know, Revolut has done it, you know, and so these kind of, because this is a consumer, you know, brand as well, right? They need people to join and get bank accounts as well as invest. So yeah, there's a lot of sense to doing it sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. And we're at time. And so I want to thank you, Ahmed, for joining me today on Bits and Atoms. It was great to have you here. Lovely conversation. I'll let you get back to building, but thanks again for joining me today.
Yes, thanks so much. Cheers.